Welcome around this new episode of Let's Talk AI. I'm super happy to be here today with Noz Urbina. Noz, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Thomas. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is the fifth time I try this introduction. Sorry about that. For everyone who is new to the show, Let's Talk AI, a podcast where we deep dive with experts about data and AI and how it helps many companies of different sizes and from different roles with kind of a data and like technical approach, but also we're going to see through this episode, we're going to take different routes. We're today with Noz. Noz, maybe for the people who might not know you, can you do a brief introduction of yourself?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I am an omnichannel content strategist. I have been in the business for coming on to my 25th year. So I'm 24 years now. So I started right at the .com boom, which is a very exciting and interesting time to enter the digital space. And my specialism has always been around structured and semantic technologies, which took a very long time to really start to mainstream. And I'm very happy to say that now they're becoming very well known, and a lot of people are talking about the kind of concepts that we were talking about 15, 20 years, 25 years ago. And I founded three companies. Three brands, I should say. OmnichannelX, which is my podcast, my older podcast, or my more established podcast, and where we do learning materials and webinars. Urbina Consulting itself, which is where we generate our revenue, working with clients, usually in the pharmaceutical, high tech, manufacturing space, but not exclusively. We work all over the place, but always large enterprises. And then finally, I've just launched truthcollapse.com, which is not about how we succeed with AI, but actually how we avoid and understand the risks and the dangers that it poses. So I'm very pro artificial intelligence. I've been working with this for many, many years, but I'm also very conscious of what we have to do to be careful with it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I have this series of questions to get started. So we have quite of a clear idea of what you're trying to achieve, kind of. And so I'd like to do a follow-up on that, which is my first question to you was, what's your state of the art? And by that, I mean, what are you trying to achieve today? You have a very interesting experience and many years into the field. But as of today, what drives you, or what are you trying to achieve?
Well, it's that double focus. I think artificial intelligence is the most significant technical advancement, not just of the century or the millennia, but of thousands of years. I don't put it on the level people say in agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, and then AI revolution. I put it more at the species level. I really think we're talking the level
Welcome
of
around
fire,
this new episode of Let's Talk AI. I'm super happy to be here today with Noz Urbina. Noz, how are you doing?
That powerful and that transformational. So trying to manage the balance between achieving the benefits, implementing the solutions, and avoiding the risks. That's one of my main focuses right now. And as an omni-channel person, I've always been focused on how brands can build relationships with people. A brand is a very, I'm not going to say fragmented, but I think they can be, but they are often siloed, multifaceted, multi-departmental, and having what is an organization build relationships with individuals or a buying committee is hard. So, actually building solid omnichannel relationships with technology has always been one of my fundamentals.
Awesome. Following up on that, I think it would be super interesting if we can do key moments of your careers, and maybe you can share some insights that you've learned at those specific points. So I'm sure you have plenty of stories to share, but if you could pick the relevant from kind of the beginning to you to today's, and sharing some key experiences that guided you through your careers and that were really helpful in learnings and growth.
Sure. I don't know why that question makes me feel so old, but
okay. Side note, I always try to ask that very nicely, and I don't
No,
mean.
no, you asked it perfectly. You asked it perfectly. That's on my side. That's on my side. Um, so I was very lucky. Right out of school, I kind of accidentally ended up in a very, very cutting edge company. Not cutting edge. It was beyond the bleeding edge in the sense that it was surviving, but it was servicing a very small market of thought leaders selling to thought leaders who were trying to build a semantic, structured, metadata rich, channel agnostic, automation ready, personalization ready, digital digital internet. So not websites, which a lot of my customers are still talking about, but how do we create content solutions that are able to bring content and data together from wherever it is to wherever it needs to go in the way that it needs to be presented for those particular users. That's the world I was born into at 21, straight out of school. So I didn't even know. I didn't know how other people were doing websites. I found out after years, kind of in that tiny little world of people doing structured semantic content, that other people were copying and pasting and, doing things in Microsoft Word documents and then kind of putting that up or throwing everything up in PDFs. And so being in that tiny, tiny community, I was able to access like the people who were inventing the modern web. So, for example, Web 2.0, things, I don't know how technical your audience is, but things like Ajax, the fact that at the beginning of the web, many of your users won't even remember this, but there was a time when the web was read-only. You published a web page and you read a web page. What we have today, where a web page is a dynamic state in time that's constantly changing based on user interactions, the idea that we can have tools like Google Docs, which work over the web as applications over the web. I saw those things being built, and I was working with the people who were chairing committees to build the standards upon which the modern web, the current modern web is built. And then also talking about the standards that the future web is going to be built on, like RDF, knowledge graphs, semantic web technologies, and so on. So to be in that environment as a student straight out of school and being able to go to meetings with people and have lunch with these people who were building the standards like XML, HTML, CSS, SVG, RDF, and so on and so on, was just it was the perfect learning opportunity and to give me a jump start in my career. I didn't realize how lucky I was for probably the first 10 years. And then when I started my company and started working on my own and going out in for general contracts outside of that community, I realized that I felt like I was from the future, like I was time traveling back and being able to bring people ideas of what was going to come. So that was the fundamental one. And then the next big milestone, I guess, would be launching my own company. So when I stopped working for other people and trying to sell other people's services and products, to defining my own offerings, trying to understand where the market was going and building offerings that were going to be future friendly, and testing those, seeing where there were gaps and where I needed to fill in those gaps, and building my own thoughts as a professional and writing my own book. Those were big moments for me to learn and progress. And then artificial intelligence has been huge for me. I had been building methodologies where we were structuring content and looking at automation workflows, looking at journey mapping, using the customer experience and the journey as the design system to structure the content and the content metrics. So we're bringing UX, measurement, content production, content modeling, semantic metadata all together as one design process. I've been doing that for many years, and then now we have artificial intelligence, which helps me accelerate that by such a huge way. And so those would be I would say the big three.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. So I
Warn
think
me if I'm talking too fast. When I get excited, I get like that.
No, it's great. I'm just there are many ways to go from now. So I think my follow up question to you, now that we have kind of a clear vision of what you're trying to achieve and key moments of your career, you mentioned content, you mentioned knowledge graph, and all of those things. And I can think so to answer your sub question. The audience is pretty technical. A lot of data professionals, people who are working in the field. So you can go all in terminologies. I'm pretty curious about them. Um, so I think I'm curious about two things: the consulting route, but more specifically before um, the content creation game. So you have a very unique expertise in that domain and how technology and AI applies to it. I could throw some words, like you said, knowledge graph, graph neural networks, and now we have the power of LLMs that can also, in agents, that can also build very interesting and automated processes. What can you share with us about the content creation game, how it has evolved, and what are the current possibilities with the state of the art technology?
Yes. So I would say I want to kind of philosophically contextualize myself. My role and goal has always been to help bring these complex, new, and powerful technologies to a wider audience. I'm not going to say necessarily a mainstream audience, but the enterprise audience. I don't tend to talk to the individual practitioners so much, or people who are going to be doing things on their own, or the late majority who kind of do things once everything is perfectly packaged into commoditized solutions. I like to work at that, as I said, sort of the cutting edge area, maybe bleeding edge, and sorry, I think I've lost the thread of the crux of the question. There was about what I see as the possibilities.
Yes, possibilities and how it has evolved. So, like you are mentioning, your focus on democratization of that to not mainstream but organization, and like how do you yourself have seen content creation evolve through time, and how this technology can enhance possibilities, or like what does it give us, what is possible today, and what people are asking for.
Yeah. So leading on from what I was setting in the introduction there. So what I see right now uh, is a continuation of a movement that I've been seeing for many years, which is the rising understanding that writing is not just a creative personal act, but writing in an enterprise or business or organizational, doesn't have to be a commercial context, government and education creation as well. It's, although there is an artistic side to it, it is not up to the individual to kind of set their we don't all get to set our own frameworks and systems and templates. We are contributing into a system, and that system has to have its own structures, templates, standards, etc., so that the users can get the best possible experience of it, and that the creators and managers are able to manage it and create effectively and quickly and efficiently. So I came from the world of technical documentation, which I didn't mention in my intro, but that in technical documentation 25 years ago, when we were talking about airplanes or brain scanners or a nuclear power plant or surgery tools, we had huge complex devices that had many angles and perspectives from which you wanted to look at the body of related content. So if you take something like a complex medical device or an airplane, or any complex microchip or manufacturing device, you have many different types of people who want to know about it. You have people who want to buy it, people who want to implement it, people who are creating it, people who are maintaining it. And they all have different levels of background knowledge, and they're coming in from different channels. And some, want learning content, some want dynamic troubleshooting content, some want more commercial and benefits content. So any of these complex products might have literally 250,000, 500,000, what we would call pages of content about it. But no one wants to look at all that. They want their perspective to cut through the content. So that's always been the driver. And what I'm seeing today is we're getting closer and closer to being able to deliver on that goal of I as a creator or I as a consumer of the content want to understand what I'm supposed to do. I want to get the content that I want, and I want it in the format that I find most comfortable. And I want to be able to understand how things all fit together. So I don't want just a quick answer in isolation. I want to be able to drill down and learn more and explore the relationships around any particular fact or piece of content. So that goal has been with us since I started it, and I think has been with us since we were writing things down. And what artificial intelligence does is it helps us at every part of the life cycle. From the very beginning, we can understand, for example, what our users' needs are better. So we can use things like call transcriptions, which is a form of AI, to transcribe audio into text. And then we can use another AI to auto tag and sentiment analysis that text. So now we've gone from human conversations over a telephone to a set of structured insights and sentiments, which can then feed into requirements. And then we can use AI to ideate around those requirements, and we can use those insights to feed, for example, simulations of our users, create virtual personas. I like the term persona simulations. There's a term going around the internet which I hate called synthetic users. I don't like that one at all. But we can build up these persona simulations and then build journey maps with our personas, and then create virtual colleagues like virtual data analysts, virtual UX assistants to help us extend our capacities, and then actually build the solution. So we can, automatically build code, automatically build wireframes, automatically build imagery. So what I like to tell people is, please, for the love of God, stop focusing on throwing chatbots in front of the user. I think there's so many people who just want to replace websites with a chatbot or replace people with a chatbot. And what I'm saying is, don't confine AI to any one phase or area. Think about the entire content lifecycle and how every process at every stage, even from initial understanding of what should we even be writing about, can be AI enhanced. I personally believe that people should be very cautious about that last stage, as we've seen Google, Microsoft, Lufthansa, I can't even list all the big companies who have screwed up with all the most resources in the world. These are companies that have more money than anyone else in the world, the best brains in the industry, and they are having these very public, very terrible mistakes trying to throw these technologies directly in front of the user. So I'm advocating that we look at the whole life cycle and understand how to use it there. The other last thing I would say is not to think of the AIs in isolation. The other big mistake I see with across the board, both non-technical and technical users, they're thinking, I'm going to create the best AI. I'm going to have my version of ChatGPT, or I'm going to have my model that I've downloaded. I'm going to train it myself, and I'm going to create the one super AI. Like in the movies, we have the magic AI we can talk to, and it's going to be the best for doing what I want to do, and it's going to be the most brilliant AI, and it's going to do all the things. Like other intelligences, artificial intelligences work best in collaboration. So we've seen with what's called mixture of agents, mixture of experts, multiple AIs working in collaboration will outperform one big super trained AI with many more parameters and much more data. So rather than trying to make the God AI, think of what's the right amount of AI, what's the right amount of compute, what's the right type of feature that I need for this stage. So ChatGPT may not be your best sentiment analyst, or may not be your best content auto tagger, or content transformer. It might be your best image generator. sometimes maybe you just don't want an LLM in that situation, and you want to call out to a knowledge model, like an ontology or a semantic API, where a human being has built a world model that you can access with your AI, and all your LLM is doing is being the linguistic interface to that structured knowledge. It does not attempt to answer the questions. It just helps people look things up in a database that has modeled the intelligence. So those are the I think that's my somewhat long and short answer, because I could go on infinitely to that question of what's possible. But I think those are the big ones that jump out at me.
Awesome. Okay, so I think to follow up on that, I'd like to ask you about customer journey. So you work with enterprise mainly. I'm super curious if you could have some use cases, examples, because I feel that all those frameworks can be quite challenging to grasp. But once we put some pieces or like a framework, then it becomes very clear. Before asking you directly to use cases, I think I wanted to ask you about customer journey mapping. So if you're going to use if you're going to build something for a company and want to help them with their content creation game, and like you said, you can use the call, extract labels from each conversation, and have a better understanding of this person based on the different calls and mails that have been sent. I can contextualize that, and I can build a unique profile or assign a unique profile to this person, having kind of a clusterization of different profiles of customers that this client have. And then that could go on to unique ways to communicate to these clients and sharing value from them based on different internal resources that we have or things that we want to share, and maybe internal resources or databases that we want to use to create content or share value with those users. And then we can have some, like you said, agentic system agents that will just be in the part of the analysis or be in the part of creating the content in different files formats. Maybe it's a newsletter, HTML, and you can iterate over. So like, this is me throwing a lot of idea of what I can think. But
I just want to interrupt you there to say that you can even have an agentic system where 3 agents of the same type work together on one task. So it's not necessarily that each agent has its dedicated tasks. We've seen that multiple small agents working together on the same task will outperform one large supermodel. So it's not necessarily, I did describe the idea of that we have the UX and the writer and the data analyst, and I do that. But to also, in a complex enterprise workflow, think about where, okay, we might put in 3 small writing LLMs in a sequence and have each one improve the efforts of the previous one. That or have a dialogue with each other, and where they're told to go back and forth 10 times between the 3 of them or 2 of them until they come out with the best possible product for the task. So that breaking that model down, Google just did an experiment with 1 million experts. And then they created then an expert retrieval system. So what is the best set of experts of my 1 million experts to bring together to this one single task? So it's that scale that takes us away from the anthropomorphizing. Stop thinking about it like a human, and think about it as an intelligence which is distributed across your stack that you can bring in many combinations. That's what I was trying to get across.
Okay, got it. And if I can follow up on that, so at an organizational level, what are people struggling? Well, I guess my question is, how do you capture the value? You also said something like people want to throw chatbot to end users, and a lot of time, your opinion, you're like, forget the chatbot, just try to understand the best system. Maybe there is no chatbot, no UI. So can you elaborate maybe on that, both on the what your what you've seen that clients want, and how do you build that kind of solution? Is it me interacting with different agents through a chatbot, or what are the other ways around?
So I'll address both that and the just customer journey mapping question you alluded to, because I think I can use it as an example. So I've been doing several customer journey mapping with AI courses recently, and I've been asking people what they're doing. And you alluded to this earlier when you used the word frameworks. So Urbina Consulting has built already 2 frameworks to build on top of LLMs to do customer journey mapping. Well, no, sorry. One to do AI solution design, and then on top of that, we already built a particular solution for customer journey mapping. So we have what's called, and I'm glad I have a technical audience because I can nerd out a little bit. What we call OOAC, OOAC, object-oriented AI configurations. And what that is rather than doing what the marketing from the AI companies tells you, which is just throw these bots open and talk to them like a person. That's fine. There's times you should do that, organically kind of converse and explore and iterate with the AI. That's totally fine. That is not the only thing that people should be doing, especially in an enterprise context. So what Wax is about is thinking about how we configure an AI with its skills and abilities and knowledge as in an object-oriented way. So if I have, for example, I just mentioned the data analyst AI configuration, the UX professional AI configuration, and then I could have theoretically infinite, but let's say I have 10 different main personas that I want to configure for this organization. So, and then I might have some content creation configurations. All of those have a similar object structure, and we have templates for how you build an agent, and then that template within it has the concept of skills. So certain skills will be shared across all agents. Others will be unique for the different agents. So all agents have a learn skill. So if I want to just learn new data, I have a learn skill, and I say learn this new data, and rather than trying to reply about it or analyze it or waste a bunch of tokens discussing it, I can just take another 3,000 words of input, and it says, okay, done, got it, added to the profile. Let's go on to the next task. So that's a common that skill of learn is shared across all agents. And if I find some way to improve that skill, then that learn skill object, which is shared by my higher level objects of configurations, gets updated across all of my agents. Other skills may have variations. So we have an ideate skill. So I'm going to explore ideas, and the ideate skill for a UX professional is different than the ideate skill for the persona itself. So they have the common object, but it takes different, for example, different parameters, or provides different kinds of outputs. So we built the Wax frameworks, and then we built a particular solution which involves those personas which I was just talking about. The data analyst, the UX professional, and the personas. It doesn't include the writer, because the writer comes later. So on top of the Wax, we built what's called RUX, RAUX, or Rapid AI-Powered User Experience. And we use those 3 personas, data analyst, UX professional, and persona, to build journey maps. So the UX professional understands how to build high-level journey maps, like the outline. What are the stages? What are the main goals that any persona would want in that situation? What is a brand trying to accomplish? It also knows how to do things like, I'll get to that in a second, actually. So let's say it builds the initial outline. And it also helps us build the personas in the first place. It suggests potential personas. Then we build the personas, and then we ask the persona, okay, this is what the UX professional said you might be doing first. This is the situation you're in. This is the stage context. If you were in this stage context, what would you do? How would you feel? And then the personas know how to reply in journey format. They don't just talk in paragraphs and lists like a standard GPT or Claude. They will come back and they will say goals, narrative, pain points, channels, sentiment, think and feel quote, etc. So each persona has each agentic configuration has its skills and abilities and specialties, and then each skill has like an API. It has its expected inputs, its name, unique identifier, and then its output. So the journey stage skill of a persona replies in journey stage format, and that's ready to copy and paste into a journey map. Then we can pass back to the UX persona and say, okay, this is what the persona is experiencing and feeling and doing at this stage. What would you suggest for content solutions? What would you suggest for interface and interface and UI solutions? And then what might be the data and metrics we could gather at this point? So there's this back and forth workflow between these configurations to build up your journey map, not just what the personas experience, but also what are we going to do about it? What are potential opportunities here? What data could we generate? What data could we use for personalization? And I kind of skipped it, but the data analyst is the one who's helping us make sure that this is all real. So feeding into this process, we've got already PowerPoints and PDFs and databases and spreadsheets. So the data analyst helps prepare and clean up all this data so that it can be fed into the journey mapping process. So that's an example where if we go beyond treating the AI user like they can't do anything except kind of randomly type sentences into the bot and say, okay, you understand a template, you understand a defined business process. Now here's an agent that also understands it. This is how the two of you should work together, and this is how you can get the most out of it. I find that to be the most productive, rather than doing what OpenAI and Google are just saying, which is, look, you could just open up this magic box and it does whatever you want. Actually train it to have skills and teach it how to be part of an enterprise workflow. For me, that's the biggest gap, and I see all my trainees in the workshops, that's what, when I see them getting most excited, is they're realizing that they can bring structure and templates into the process and frameworks into the process, rather than kind of having these rather random conversations. Let's put it that way.
Got it. Following up question on that. So would that be like approaching these systems as frameworks and being able to iterate through, okay, you did that well, but I want to, from now on and for next times when this happens, do this kind of things. So that's one problem that I want to ask you about. But is it like kind of building your own frameworks? And so we're not talking about just chatbot. I have my things behind. I have my different agents, but more of like a framework where I can see the interactions and I can jump in between interactions to maybe correct, and these corrections will be learned for future iterations of whatever I'll be asking in the future. Does that sound right based on what you are sharing?
So yes. So if I wasn't painting the picture correctly, these are all interactive, human on the loop processes. So when I say, this AI talks to this AI and this happens, right now I'm encouraging users to be very manual about that. Like you take your data, you feed it into the data analyst, it produces some insights, that you look at those insights and then feed them into the UX analyst and then ask for some personas. And then you look at those personas and are they valid? Are they sensible? At every step you can stop and validate. And then once you're happy with the personas, then you can generate the full persona simulation And then on every single input and output, every interaction, was that a valid interaction? Do you need corrections? Do you need more questions? Do you need more insights on the pain points? Do you want the ideas and the opportunities to be more elaborated or more concise? So yes, at every stage, you can be dynamically and interactively asking for refinements. And then you're asking another question, which is, does that get built into the model for future? So right now, I have two kind of levels to that. Or let's say three. On the single interaction, I give a request, the AI gave me an answer, I'm not happy with it, I want improvements. And so you can go back and forth as many times as you want, explaining what you want until you get the output that you like. Or you just fix it yourself, honestly. I think it becomes eventually a waste of time to keep trying to get the AI to do something perfectly. You just copy and paste it into a document and fix it yourself. So there's the individual interactions. That's fine. Then there is what I just explained, the learn idea. For me, the learn idea right now is within the thread of a conversation. So I've built a configuration for this persona, but now we're working through a particular journey for a particular project, which is not going to form part of their core persona configuration forever. I'm just adding this kind of thing because I'm doing something particular. So I can add some new data into this task thread, and that's going to be learned just for this task thread. It will not update the core definition of the persona or of the data analyst or whatever AI I'm working with. Then there is, once you do kind of establish something, you are consistently seeing output that's not as what you want, or you have repeatedly noticed an opportunity for improving the output that you're having to manually correct. Then you say, okay, let's go back to the core and update the actual configuration so that every time anyone asks a question like this, they will get this improved output, or we will stop getting this inappropriate output. So I encourage people to build the configurations, work with it, observe, like you would with software. Build a beta, test it thoroughly, see what improvements you want to make. You can make branches. In those branches, you can kind of try stuff. And then when you're happy, then you merge it back into the trunk and say, okay, yeah, I want to commit these changes right up to the highest level. So I also like to try to explain that model. And this is very difficult sometimes for users to wrap their head around because they think everything that they say to the AI is going to be learned back up into its kind of super AI brain. So to give them the idea that actually, no, this conversation is a dynamic thing and is not affecting the configuration. But if you did want to, you could grab the insights and what you've learned from that and then put them back into the configuration. I think that you need to have that multi-level approach, or else you're constantly tweaking your configuration and you're constantly messing with it. And I think it's better to, test and learn, and then update in releases like you would any other piece of software.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Amazing. Okay, so I have two ways to follow up on that. The first one is success stories that you could share with us, or or that maybe can help us kind of think in different ways to apply that, and quantify how would you quantify return on investment or time saved for clients. And the other way is omnichannel approach. What is it, and what does it have to do with all of that? So which way do you want to go first?
Let's talk about success stories. So as I said, I work a lot in pharmaceutical, medical devices, high-tech manufacturing, the kind of industry. But we've also been working with companies like National Geographic and IKEA and the British government. And so companies that are not at all in the same spaces, but are large, complex, have a lot of content, a lot of channels, a lot of different types of users. So when we're working in the situations, I've had a long career. I have lots of success stories. the journey mapping process itself and omnichannel, for me, has been maybe some of my favorite success stories, which are the first one that comes to my mind when someone says success stories, is I always think about this project with a major pharmaceutical company where we were really helping them use the journey mapping and persona process to generate true empathy, really understand these users. And we did that with user interviews. And then we turned the results of those insights in the journey mapping process into content model and content design changes. So how do you structure a piece of content that you're trying to give to these people? What was wrong with it before? How do you kind of create a clear analysis of this is what's wrong with the content? Not that they like it, were they satisfied, were they unsatisfied, but why are they unsatisfied? And what changes to the content should you make structurally in terms of metadata and templating and so on to make it better? So we did that process. This was not using AI. We just the omnichannel journey mapping methodology to look at their whole experience, from Googling to receiving the content, to reading the content, to understanding the content. Like, how fast were they able to look at the content and answer a question based on what was contained in it? So we did that process, and we went back to the users and we showed them the journey maps and we showed them the content before and after, and we would measure their feelings about it before on things like, we quantified empathy. We would say, we would ask them to score on how much they felt this content was respecting their human needs. These are people who had cancer. These are people who had nearly died or had their lives radically altered. And so we would want to know, is this content showing empathy for your human situation? Is this content structured in a way which is appropriate for your needs and your way of understanding medical information? And then getting into things like heading labels, like what the example that I like best, that was one of the users spoke for, I think, nearly 2 minutes straight about how it made him feel when we changed the term glossary to the terms you'll need to know. So because in the analysis, we saw that we were giving recycled medical information that was it was secondhand rewrite of stuff that was aimed at doctors, and then we were giving it to patients. And it was not appropriate. It wasn't structured in an appropriate way because their priorities going into the content were not the same. And they had different questions. Our whole methodology is driven on questions. And the users, the patients' first questions are things like, am I going to die? Am I going to have a side effect? If I'm going to have a side effect, how bad is it going to be? If I'm going to have a side effect, what are the chances I'm going to have a side effect? So yeah, okay, maybe I could have a very bad side effect, but is it like a 90% chance I will or a 90% chance I won't? Like, these are the things that a patient cares about first. So we had to restructure all the content to address that. And then along the way, there's a glossary of terms. Like, they don't know these words. And turns out some of the doctors don't either, because not every doctor knows every single term in all of medicine. But by making that little change and putting over the glossary terms you'll need to know, he just felt that this had recognized him. It recognized where he was coming from, and now he felt this content is for him. It's not written for somebody else. It's actually aimed at him. And so that, for me, at looking at their whole experience and breaking down everything that they're going through in an omnichannel way and thinking, what are their real questions along their journey, to come out with those little changes or structural changes that make them feel differently. For me, that's one of my favorite success stories of my career. We had other interviewees who started crying, in the sessions. They were really telling us real stories about their real lives, and being able to take that into a structured format in a journey map and then extract insights to deliver a better content model. That, for me, as a semantic structured content person, That's the best thing I could do. And then when we brought AI into this, it was able to let us do that same thing, but just so much faster, and for many more personas and many more situations than we could otherwise. Because I want to be able to empower every organization to improve their relationships like that. But the journey mapping process is very slow, very labor intensive, very complex. And you have all these different journeys and all these different personas and all these different variants and all this different personalized output. So it was very hard and expensive, and only the biggest companies who actually allocate a research budget could access that. So my other success stories have been bringing that methodology, now that we can AI accelerate it, to other environments where there's less budget, less time, or there's more needs, there's more personas, there's more journeys that we have to go through, but the same amount of budget and time. So those are I could go on. I have lots of other stories that I love, but I think those are my favorite concepts.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And maybe to just wrap this one, in terms of quantifying that, maybe for like next clients, if they want to have a better understanding of, okay, they're going to invest this time and effort in these solutions, how do you measure? So I understand, like, from the results of the improvements of the different exchanges that you had with, in that case, patients. Do you have more metrics that are relevant to this kind of projects? Because, well, of course, I assume that you've done different things in different industries, but a lot regarding content. So do you have metrics that you can share that are really relevant to potential new clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one of my favorite metrics is customer effort score, which is when we're looking at a journey, how much work did we make it for you? Did we make it? Is it very effortful to research a side effect? Is it very effortful to research which university you want to go to, or change a bank transaction, or look into some fraud, or look at how to resolve an error in your software? What's the customer effort score? And McKinsey and all sorts of research agencies have shown that customer effort score is far more predictive of relationship quality, aka loyalty, than customer satisfaction. Because customer satisfaction, you just say, okay, well, you know what? That met my expectations, so I'm satisfied. Being satisfied means you ticked the box of whatever my expectations were. Customer effort is not based on pre-existing expectations. It's based on a more realistic thing, which is, was that a lot of work or a little work? So if my expectations were terrible, I might still be satisfied because I expect nothing from you. But I'll still, but you tell me how much work it was, then I'll tell you, yeah, it was a lot of work. And actually, I don't like it. I'm just used to it. So customer effort score, great metric for analyzing journeys. Journey velocity, how fast are we moving people through their to their objectives? The impact of personalization. So many companies are throwing millions, hundreds of millions across the industry at personalization. But when is it relevant? Are you doing something meaningful with your personalization? So doing A/B tests and doing correlations, like when we personalize content and people engage with personalized content, their likelihood of making a large purchase, or likelihood of renewing, or likelihood of whatever, it goes up by X%. So if you engage with personalized content 3 times in a quarter, you're twice as likely to take our premium versus our middle product. Those kind of statistical correlations of personalization metrics. Time to answer. I give you a piece of content, and regardless of like search and navigation and SEO and all that garbage, which not garbage, like all that stuff which everyone's obsessed with. Yeah, good. Those disciplines are all in place. We should do them. They're very, very important. But what happens when you actually get to the result? Is that result properly structured, within itself navigable, readable, etc.? So time to answer is when I've got my answer, or when I've got my results output, might be a page or maybe some deliverable, but whatever the thing is that I was looking for throughout all these other technologies, how fast before I can get the actual answer to my question in that content. And so we do A/B tests. So here's your content before, here's your content restructured, properly tagged. And tagged can just mean, things have headings, consistent headings, that behind the scenes as a tag, but to the user comes out as a heading. How fast am I able to find an answer in there? I mentioned quantifying empathy, quantifying intimacy. So for example, we've been doing lead scoring for years. So in sales, we say, okay, this lead is like, at an 80 out of 100. It's really shown a lot of behaviors, and its overall score is 80 out of 100. Can we do that with relationship intimacy? So you're not currently selling, but you're reading our newsletters, you're coming and watching our webinars, you're calling support. Like, what level of interactions create an intimacy score between you and the brand? I could go on for the rest of this podcast about metrics, but those are some of my favorites.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. And so I think I'll ask you a last question before closing round of question, which is something, having you on the podcast, I should have asked you maybe earlier, but omnichannel. Can you put in some words what is omnichannel? How does it relate to all the concepts that we've been talking about, and where is it heading?
Yes. Well, you've asked me several times. I keep answering other things. So what is omnichannel? Omnichannel is taking a design approach to how you deploy your experience across the channels that you're using. Omnichannel is not e-commerce, which pisses me off when people keep confusing the two. And is not restricted to e-commerce. It is whatever experience you're doing on the channels that you are doing it. So it is not being on all the channels, because no one is on all the channels, and no one should be on all the channels. That's a ridiculous goal and has no ROI. But of the channels that you have determined are useful, taking a design approach to the totality of that experience, and understanding how the user experiences it. So when I said at the beginning, I'm looking at how brands have relationships, omnichannel is it's the framework by which we look at that relationship, how it works, how it develops, and its health. So if I'm trying to develop a relationship with you, and I constantly forget who you are, I forget your name, I forget the last interaction we had, or you ask me two different questions and I kind of lose my train of thought. Brands do that across their channels. Like I phone you, I have a bunch of interactions, I go on the website, there's no change. Or I go on the website and then I phone you, and then the person on the phone has no idea of what I've done on the website. You've been marketing to me, and now a salesperson calls me, and the salesperson is not really well informed on what I was looking at during the marketing phase. They maybe saw I showed up on one list, like saw this webinar or whatever, but they don't really have a kind of data picture of who I am. Support, there's all this, you seduced me very well. I'm very excited by all your marketing and sales. You made me feel this is going to be a great relationship. And then boom, you dropped me. Your technical documentation sucks. The actual user experience sucks. You're unresponsive on social media. Omnichannel is looking at the whole process and going, how are we going to be a good relationship partner? Not how do we create a great app? How do we deliver a good website? How do we make sure people register and click on our newsletter? Things like the newsletter people are being evaluated on open rates and click-through, but then there's no concern about follow-up. So you've incentivized them to put in to chase those metrics that then may or may not lead to downstream actual business metric results. So we see people creating these pop-ups or creating these email newsletter headlines that go, click me, I want you to click me, because that's what those people are incentivized to do. And then the other channels downstream are getting all this garbage traffic from the wrong people or from people with expectations which are not realistic. So omnichannel is that unified view of the experience, and it of course leverages everything we've been talking about, because then you need to federate data, you need to make relationships. So if I'm on a chatbot, does that chatbot understand both support and marketing? Can you bring me links to across different repositories, or am I and this exists. People were for years copying and pasting from the sources into the chatbot configuration. So the chatbot had all these fixed answers, and then if you went on the website and it had been updated, the chatbot would give you a different response. Or we had customers where if you went on the mobile web, you could see different content than on the desktop web. So Omnichannel is looking at all those different problems and saying, how do we create unified information systems, unified human workflow processes, consistent templates, consistent metadata, to try to bring all this together as much as we can around the experience we're trying to deliver. That's my very impassioned, as you can see, definition of omnichannel, and how it unifies everything we've been talking about for the last hour.
Awesome. Amazing. Yeah, I think I don't have any more follow-up question regarding omnichannel. It's pretty clear, and we've also answered regarding the future of omnichannel. It really looks like agents have a big role. AI voice agent could be an open question for another day, or maybe some upcoming blog post of yours. But yeah, I can really grasp and understand the value. So
I would really love to talk about the metaverse and VR and all that stuff, which people have kind of forgotten sometime, but I think maybe we're running out of time. But those are channels too, and so are people. You know, the way that you deliver intranets and training to your own people so that they can answer questions. Those are also channels, not to be forgotten.
Oh, and do you want to follow up on the VR and Metaverse? Do you want to
Yeah, if
add
you've got a
something?
time, I can talk to it a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Oh yeah, so I'm a huge metaverse person. I unfortunately haven't gotten to do many production projects with it yet, so it's mainly my own kind of research and publishing and thoughts on it. But we do have clients that are using metaverse type technologies to mainly in heavy industry, so not like your public, let's say, gaming headsets and stuff like that, but for technicians and people who are using remote assist, things like that. So like most things in computers, it doesn't go consumer first. We go industry first. So the industry who can afford to spend 5,000 or 10,000, 25,000 per user to get a solution out there, they will make the investments. And then eventually those investments will result in better technologies, infrastructure, companies that then can make more consumer versions of that. So I think Zuckerberg tried to take the metaverse straight to consumer. Google Glass tried to take the metaverse straight to consumer. They wanted it to be the next iPhone, and it's not. It has to grow up through heavy industry, the way that the internet originally did, the way that computers, we said personal computers because we were distinguishing from every other computer that had been there for decades. So the personal computing revolution was a thing. Then the mobile computer revolution was a thing. And we need to give the metaverse its time to develop and incubate in industry for those complex applications like, as I said, remote assistant for technicians, medical interventions. We've seen some fantastic collaborative surgeries where doctors are using augmented reality to do surgeries. And then we do have some really nice consumer applications. For example, like previewing how an IKEA sofa might look in my living room, rather than flipping through the catalog and holding the catalog up to my living room and going, what might the couch look like? Or, going to the IKEA store, looking at the stuff and then trying to remember the couch and go and then picture it in your living room. So if we can just kind of bring these worlds together, and I can bring up my tablet or my phone and go and flip through different couches and actually see them in my living room. Those kind of applications are really nice. And what I like to kind of show people, my favorite example is that when it's done right, as they say, good design and good tech disappears. So I can be standing in front of a crowd of 500 people, and I can I ask them, "Are you augmented reality users on a regular basis?" And what, 3, 10, 20 are going to put up their hands. And then I say, "How many of you have one of those cameras in your car that when you back up, it shows you the video plus this overlay of graphics of where the car is going to go and how far away things are?" And then another 70% of the hands are going to go up. That is an augmented reality interface. But because it works so well, I've actually literally have people go, "Well, I don't consider that to be augmented reality." And I'm like, because you're putting the metaverse and augmented reality always in this far away future thing, instead of thinking, what are good, useful, usable applications of this technology that I could do today? Rather than, like I was saying about AI, don't just think about what the big brands are trying to tell you this technology is for. Imagine, how could I actually apply it in a useful way today? It's not about kind of replacing my computer or replacing my phone today. So how could I use it effectively with the tools that do exist? And I think that will help us really bring the metaverse into its full potential as the other way of accessing the internet.
I see. Amazing. Uh, um, I'm very excited about that too. I really want to try these new Apple glasses that you can put on and kind of have these augmented uh, augmented screens and being able to like interact with it kind of with your arms. I want to try that, but this is definitely super interesting. And two last question. The first one being, where can people find more about yourself and your brands and reach out?
So unfortunately, I'm a very omnichannel guy. So LinkedIn is a good one. I really like connecting on LinkedIn. I am a LinkedIn, I don't know, creator or whatever they call it. So you can't just connect with me. The default is follow, but if you click the 3 dots and click the menu, then you can find the connect button if you want to connect. On LinkedIn, the other one, the main ones is urbinaconsulting.com, where you can find out about my companies, case studies, work that we do, training that we have available, workshops that we provide. The other one is OmnichannelX.digital. So not .com, but .com works too, but the main URL is .digital. OmnichannelX, all one word, no dash, no nothing. And OmnichannelX is where we have our main podcast, which we've been running for several years. And we have our blog and some articles there. And you can also follow the OmnichannelX newsletter, where you can get kind of updates. We don't publish unless we have something to say. So you might get nothing for 3 months. So we publish when we have something we think is valuable for our audience. And there's lots of webinars and existing content that you can watch on there for free right now. And then finally, the new site, truthcollapse.com, which is still kind of coming soon. There are a couple of pre-launch episodes that where we had OmnichannelX podcasts, which were leading up to the idea of Truth Collapse, which I think is the most important topic right now, because everyone's talking about how do we get the most out of AI. And Truth Collapse, I want to talk about that fundamental risk. What happens when we can't believe each other or believe ourselves anymore? What happens when we're filtering our faces and filtering our memories and editing everything in real time all the time, between ourselves and our own memories, or between us and our fellow humans? And what happens in that society? Truth Collapse is a very dangerous thing, and the problem is it's very seductive. It doesn't happen because we want it to, or because there's bad actors abusing AI. It happens because people are doing fun stuff and they're enjoying themselves and they're creating digital content, and they're expressing themselves, but they're eating away at the foundations of reality. So Truth Collapse is the .com is where we have just launching that podcast, and we'll be publishing more about those concepts there. So that's all my brands and properties and links.
Awesome. I wish, yeah, This is a topic that we didn't target on this episode, but maybe for a follow-up episode, because I think it's a very interesting one and very important to comment nowadays. Awesome. Last question. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Last question is, do you have a message for the Let's Talk AI community? It can be anything that we commented in this podcast or not.
If you are working in AI, you have an ethical responsibility to think about potential abuse of AI. So you cannot think only about this is how we intend it to be used. You have to think about unintended possibilities of use. So you must consider not what your client or your stakeholder or your employer is just wants from you, but what the implications are of what you're putting out into the world. Everyone listening to this podcast right now should understand you are now working for a weapons manufacturer. You are working for a companies, and you're building applications that are the most powerful and potentially dangerous things that we've ever created. So you need to think about, as an individual and then within teams, when it's time to say no. When it's time to say, no, I won't take that contract or I won't implement that feature. That's, I am very, very pro AI because we understand each other. I understand that I don't trust it. And that lack of trust helps us have a healthy relationship. So the best way to get the most out of it is to be cautious and to be humble about what you don't know and about what you might not expect. So that's it's trying to be a positive message. I don't want to be down on AI. I want to be realistic. And so that's my message of hope, is that we get to a good place by understanding how to avoid the real, very real risks that are around us.
Awesome. Amazing. Noz, thank you very much for coming on the show. I had an amazing time and I wish you to have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, and I hope to see you again.